During the late 1970s and the 1980s, a brutal saga unfolded on the streets of Canada. This was a conflict that tore through the fabric of Canadian society, leaving an indelible scar on its history. The two most notorious and powerful motorcycle clubs in the country, the Outlaws and the Hells Angels, engaged in a catastrophic battle of supremacy. This was not a skirmish that lasted a few months or even a couple of years. It was a bloody war that spanned an entire decade. The stage is set. The starting point of this violent saga was set in the rough and tumble world of Montreal's underworld. Here, a notorious American biker gang, the Outlaws, cast their gaze northward, intrigued by the prospect of extending their empire into Canada. With an ambitious glint in their eyes, they set their sights on a notable player in the local scene, the Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club. Satan's Choice was no pushover. They had been a part of the Canadian biker scene for over a decade and had earned their share of respect and fear. Yet the Outlaws, known for their brutal tactics and ruthless ambitions, saw them not as rivals, but as a means to expand their territory and influence. While the Outlaws were strategizing, the Hells Angels, another powerful biker gang with a global reach, were also eyeing opportunities for expansion. Their target? The Popeye Moto Club. This wasn't just any biker club. Popeye Moto Club was infamous for their own brand of ruthlessness, which made them an appealing target for the Hells Angels. By December 1977, the chess pieces began to move. The Hells Angels, through a mix of intimidation, negotiation, and show of force, successfully absorbed the Popeye Moto Club into their ranks. This wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. It was a message to all the other clubs in the Canadian biker scene that the Hells Angels were not just players, but potential kings on the chessboard of biker politics. This was the beginning of a new era. It was a time of alliances, power plays, and an escalating cycle of violence that would redefine the landscape of the Canadian biker scene. And it all started on the gritty streets of Montreal, where the ambitions of two powerful biker gangs were set on a collision course. The war begins. As winter held Montreal in its icy grip in February 1978, a new chill was spreading across the city's underworld. The Outlaws, determined to stake their claim, executed a bold move. They took over the Montreal Rockers MC. It was a clear and audacious declaration of their intent, and it reverberated through the biker community. But the Hells Angels weren't about to let this change go unanswered. In their world, power was maintained through respect, and respect was earned through strength and the willingness to use it. And in the Hells Angels, there was one member who epitomized this ethos: Yves Apache Trudeau. Trudeau was not an imposing figure, standing at a modest 5'6" and weighing in at just 135 pounds. He wasn't the stereotypical burly biker, but what he lacked in size, he more than made up for in ruthlessness. Trudeau was the club's enforcer, a man feared for his cold-blooded resolve and his readiness to do whatever it took to protect the Hells Angels' interests. On a freezing February night, under the pale glow of the streetlights, Trudeau made his move. He approached a group of Outlaws members and without a word of warning, pulled out a gun. The deafening sound of gunfire echoed through the silence of the night, instantly killing one member and critically injuring another. It was a ruthless act of violence that left the city stunned, marking the beginning of a full-blown war that would mar the streets of the Quebec province for the next 10 years. A war that would be fought not just with bullets and bombs, but with fear, intimidation, and a brutal determination to reign supreme. The rising tide of violence. As days turned into weeks, the city of Montreal found itself trapped in a terrifying cycle of violence. The brutal war between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws escalated with each passing day, shaking the city to its core. The Angels, fueled by their desire to dominate, weren't holding back. Their tactics became even more ruthless, their attacks more daring. The city was held hostage by fear as tales of their brutality became the stuff of nightmares. One incident that sent chills down the spine of Montreal was the bombing of the Outlaws' leader. The Angels had planted a bomb under his car, a death sentence that was detonated without a second thought. The leader of the Outlaws and several of his closest allies were killed, sending shockwaves through the city and the biker community. But the Hells Angels were far from done. In an unprecedented show of force, they struck the Outlaws hard on 3 consecutive days in April 1978. Their reign of terror continued unabated, leaving the Outlaws crippled in the city, living in fear. The first day saw them storm the Outlaws' clubhouse, leaving behind a trail of destruction and several injured members. The second day was no less brutal, with another Outlaw member brutally murdered. And on the third day, in a crowded local bar, a Hells Angel opened fire on an outlaw and his girlfriend, leaving them both critically injured. The first counterattack. The Outlaws strike back. In a shocking twist, the Outlaws orchestrated a bloody event known as the La Tourbillon Massacre. They struck during a meeting between the Hells Angels and another motorcycle club, the Wild Ones MC. Caught off guard, the bikers were unable to defend themselves, and the Outlaws scored their first significant victory. The response. Faced with the aftermath of the massacre, the Hells Angels were far from backing down. Instead, they decided it was time to retaliate, to show that they would not let this transgression go unpunished. Their response was swift, brutal, and effective, personified by one man, Yves Apache Trudeau. Known for his deadly skills and ruthless nature, Trudeau was a notorious figure within the Hells Angels. He wasn't just a member, he was their top hitman, a lethal weapon they employed to maintain their power and to keep their enemies at bay. Tasked with avenging the massacre, Trudeau embarked on a mission to track down the man responsible. This was no small task. It meant infiltrating the ranks of the Outlaws, a rival biker gang known for its brutality and cunning. It was a dangerous assignment, one that could cost Trudeau his life. But Trudeau was undeterred. With cold determination, he set about his task. He stalked the streets of Montreal, ever on the watch for his target. He was relentless, leaving no stone unturned, his mind focused on one goal: retribution. As he hunted, Trudeau left a trail of blood and fear in his wake. He wasn't just after one man, he was determined to send a message to the Outlaws and anyone else who dared to cross the Hells Angels. One by one, he took down key figures within the Outlaws, his acts of violence chilling and ruthless. Inner conflicts. Cracks within the Hells Angels amidst the external battle, the Hells Angels were dealing with their inner demons. Trudeau was forced to eliminate a member of his own chapter due to a conspiracy. A drug addiction was tearing the North chapter apart, and the sudden death of the Canadian Hells Angels president, Yves Buteau, left the organization in turmoil. The turning point. Outlaws retreat. In the face of relentless pressure from the Hells Angels, the Outlaws were forced to retreat, relocating their stronghold to Ontario. Despite the relentless efforts of law enforcement, the Hells Angels maintained their control over Montreal and continued to operate with impunity. The aftermath. A stained legacy. The first Canadian biker war might have ended, but it left an indelible mark on Canada's underworld. The war served to solidify the Hells Angels' reputation as one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the country.